Welcome to the Barents Observer and this podcast where we bring up pressing news and look behind the headlines. Today we are going to discuss civil preparedness and civil defence in northern Norway and the Nordic region. And our guest today is Terje Meyer, leader of the civil defence forces in this part of Norway. Welcome.
Thank you.
Terje, in a new white paper to government highlights a quite extraordinary situation. What is the threat situation and how does Norwegian authorities prepare for crisis?
Well, first I will have I will say that you mentioned civil preparedness and civil defense, but the expression I'm more fond of is actually civil resilience, which is a broader perspective which sort of encompasses all the aspects of the population's ability to withstand any sort of crisis or incident or accident, whatever. So for me the expression resilience is the important one, and of which civil defense or civil protection is just a part, but an important part, I would say.
But your area of responsibility covers the Norwegian border regions to Russia. And what is specific about this region in civil preparedness and civil preparedness work?
Yeah, when we talk about civil protection and the mission that's actually stated in the Geneva Conventions, which is a part of what where we find our sort of right to exist. We can divide them into three types of missions or tasks. The first is what we call preventive measures, which is what the civil defense in Norway has primarily responsibility for, which is the warning systems, the shelters, and the evacuation plans for the population. This is what we call the preventive measures. But we also have two other types of measures. One of them is what we call handling the immediate effects of an attack, which is also some sort of civil defense. And we have tasked there to support other agencies in providing these kinds of measures. And the third group I would call ensuring the survivability of the population, which is sort of a more long-term task of taking care of the basic needs, you know, housing, warmth, clothes, water, food, electricity, all these kinds that people need to survive over a longer period of time. And this third group is to a large extent actually the responsibility of the municipalities, but we will be in a supporting role. So we have sort of tasks in all three types, but the first, the preventive measures, we have the primary responsibility authority, and then we have the municipalities and other authorities that will be the primary authorities for the other types. But as I said, we will have a supporting task there.
The situation is described as serious and rather extraordinary. How well is the population and the regional authorities prepared? What is the level of resilience, as you say?
Well, you know, there has been an increasing awareness of these things during the last few years, obviously because of the international situation. And we see that the military presence in the northern part of Norway is increasing, and there are plans to increase more, actually. But this is just a part of what we need to do. I think if you look at the types of threats that we could fall victim to, this is what we would call, with a modern word, hybrid threats. Certain types of actually non-military measures directed at the civilian society, where actually the military forces alone couldn't be expected to handle them properly. So therefore we have to also build up a civil defense which or civil resilience, which makes sure that the supplies are flowing, electricity works, electronic communications are working, people get their food and water, and all these things that makes society function properly. And we need to do that actually not just to take care of the population, but also to make sure that the population are trusting the authorities to take care of them. So this is actually a very integral and important part of preparing for a crisis, to ensure this civil preparedness.
Do locals follow your advice?
I think some will, and some will think for themselves. I think the main part is for us to start or continue building trust to the population, and make sure that they actually know that we are planning to take care of them and protect them. And in such a case, I think they will be more likely to follow our advice. And I think in many cases, the tendency is for people in crisis to act rational. But they will act rational according to their own understanding of the situation. So in many cases, our job would be to actually give the people a sound and correct understanding of what the situation actually is. And then I think they will be more likely to follow the advice from the authorities. So this is a long-term job to build this trust and to make sure that the measures we are planning is known properly by the population.
You mentioned hybrid threats and hybrid attacks. How is the situation in that regard different in the border regions to Russia compared to other parts of the Nordic region?
Well, this is actually something that other authorities would have to respond to rather than the civil defense. All I can say is that we read the assessment that is given by the proper authorities, the police and the intelligence services, and we adhere to those the advice that's coming out of these reports. And for me, I think that the main issue is that since we live where we live, maybe we feel a little bit more urgency with regards to this than maybe some other parts of the country.
As mentioned, recently there was published, made a new white paper to government, which has a long list of suggestions. Can you say what are the main key points in this work?
Well, I think it would be too much to list up all. I think it's like 120 measures that or actions that the government are advising. And they all will have to go through some political process to be decided or not. But for my part, I think the two main the things that I take out from the white paper is, first of all, a focus on building civil resilience and civil preparedness in Finnmark, which has a special mention in the report. And there is a process ongoing to further detail what this could mean in practical terms. This is one thing I think is important. The other thing is that there is a suggestion to increase the operational strength of the civil defense from 8,000 active personnel to 12,000 active personnel, which is an increase of 50%. And this is actually according to the advice we ourselves have given the government during the process of writing this white paper. And this is, of course, due to two main reasons. One thing is to have a larger force to respond to a broader spectrum of missions in the future. And the second part is actually to have the ability to keep on solving those missions over a longer period of time with high intensity. And then we need more personnel to people need rest and recovery and so on. So a larger force is actually a very good thing for us. I can mention that during the Cold War and in the late 80s, at the peak, the Norwegian Civil Defence had a force of approximately 80,000 personnel. But this was a force that was only tasked to take care of the population in case of war. No other tasks. And when the Cold War ended, so to speak, and we were all taken by the deep peace, so to speak, Actually Norway started to discuss, well, do we need a civil defense? We don't think there's going to be a war here, and so do we need it? And the answer was yes, we need it, but in order to be willing to pay for it, we will have to restate their mission. So our main mission from the early 90s was actually to be in a supporting role for the emergency services and the municipalities in peacetime to solve crises, accident, incidents, whatever. And this has been our main task for many years. We still have had the wartime task, but this has been sort of on the back burner, if you can call it that. But now this original task is taken up again and given more attention. And then, of course, we need to increase our operational capability, because we are still going to be a good supporting actor for in peacetime for the emergency services. So we have to do the same as we have during the last 20 or 30 years, but also increase focus on the original missions. So we need more people.
There's much focus on national security and military developments, but you are a non-military agency, and you also work with the civil preparedness in a broader sense. Climate change is one of the issues that you are concerned about. Yeah. How are you preparing for the developments?
Well, we have seen in the last few years that the climate changes have actual security concerns on a daily basis for the society in this area, or all over the place actually, but I'm more concerned with this local area. You can see today, it's early February, we have 5 degrees above zero and high winds. This is not something we are normally used to as a February weather in Finnmark. Or we can go like 4 years back in time to 2021 and see how the bad weather inflicted the society in Kjøllefjord, Gamvik, the Mehamn area. They had 3 days with loss of electricity, loss of electronic communications, the roads were closed, and the local community had to manage for themselves over a 2-3 day period of time, which I think they actually managed in a decent way, with help from, among others, the civil defense in the area. And this is the kind of situation we have to be prepared to handle on a larger scale in the future, I think, because this is going to be maybe not the normal, but it's going to be more of it, I think. And we are a part of the apparatus that's going to handle it. So we need the people, we need the equipment, we need the ability to cooperate with the local authorities, and all these things that needs to be strengthened. Yeah.
There is, to a growing extent, an information war going on around us. And also in our local societies, there is disinformation, there is propaganda, there are lies in the information sphere. I know that you are concerned about this development as well, and you are also working with local schools. How is this trend a part of your mission?
Well, as you know, we have had this initiative taken by a group of 4 in coordination. It's the county governor, the police, the military, and the civil defense. We are working together with a project to increase resilience in Finnmark. And one of these elements of this project is to increase the awareness and the competence of our youth to be able to meet a crisis situation. So we haven't really been able to describe the practical sides of this project yet. We have the ambition to, as I said, to increase the competence and the awareness on the youth, and we are working to make a program that should be implemented in our high schools sometime probably during the autumn of 25. So This would be basic preparedness disciplines like first aid, being able to handle yourself in a crisis, home preparedness, maybe a little bit about how to handle if you meet at an accident or incident situation, these kind of things, which is actually quite basic knowledge, which the youth will benefit from whether there will be a crisis or not, just to make them stronger, more secure, and actually be able to know that, okay, if something happens, I have some means of handling a situation. And this, of course, also will include some sort of awareness training on propaganda, lies, disinformation, and these kind of things, and being able to look at the sources of information and evaluate whether these are reliable, is it true, what's the motive of the sender, and these kind of questions, which I think it's important to train the youth to be able to do. They have also these kinds of awareness training in schools today, but I think they are more focused on the day-to-day issues the youth meet. But I think it's wise to also increase or broaden the spectrum of this to also cover security policy issues, I think.
You're sitting here talking in Kirkenes, northern Norway, and the Russian border is just a few kilometers to the east, but we also have another neighbor very close, Finland, which is also just a few kilometers away. We often hear about the very comprehensive work the Finns do within the field of civil preparedness and defense. How are you cooperating with our Finnish neighbors?
Well, as we all know, Finland and Sweden became members of NATO recently, and of course this changed the environment for cooperation across the border, maybe even the need for cooperation across the border. There are some initiatives on a national level to investigate what kind of area will we need to and benefit from a closer cooperation. And this needs to be clarified on the national level, agreements must be written, and the formalities must be in place. And this runs its course. Actually, without me influencing on it on a very large scale. But what we do on a local and regional level is, in the meantime, we're starting to build networks, get to know our sister organization across the border. Maybe we can do some exchanges on courses or exercises and these kind of things, just to get to know each other. So when the formalities on the national level is in place, we are sort of ready on the starting line to get into the practical sides of cooperation and maybe common planning and so on. So I would say it's work in progress, and we have met our Finnish and Swedish friends on one occasion as it is now, and we will start and keep on developing this through this year. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a very fruitful and interesting process.
This is a border region, and there is a long history of cross-border relations and cross-border cooperation in the area. And if we look back a few years before the Russian invasion of the Crimea and eastern Ukraine, before 2014, I know that there was also cooperation also within your field of responsibility with Russia. And I know that there was also a cooperation with Emercom, MCHS. Can you say what did you learn? What did you learn from cooperating with the Russians?
Well, this was before my time. I started in 2015 in this job, but what you are referring to is under the umbrella of the Barents Rescue Exercise Series, which was a cooperation between the rescue services in the northern region to start developing cooperation procedures and training and so on to be able to handle cross-border incidents better. And in that respect, all the agencies involved in the rescue services were exercising, maybe not on a regular basis, but from time to time. On a certain, I think it was every second or third year or something. Obviously, when 2014 came, this ended. And for all intents and purposes, the Barents Rescue Cooperation is inactive. And I think the whole framework needs to be reinvented and redesigned without Russia this time, obviously. And this is, of course, I suppose, a part of the process on the national level to find out how should we manage to or develop this new framework for cooperation.
I know there are people who are concerned and even afraid about the situation in the region. What can we say to them? Is there reason to be afraid?
I think it's reason to be aware and concerned, but I wouldn't be afraid. I think the formal authorities who does the threat assessment, I think is basically saying that there is no immediate threat of a military situation. But we need to be aware of other types of threats emerging. We are talking about hybrid threats, for instance. And I think the population at least should be a bit aware that this is a possibility. This is something that's possibly a bit more likely tomorrow than it was last year. But they also need to know that the authorities are taking this very seriously and are working to mitigate the situation and try to find measures to handle it if something occurs. There is a special focus on Finnmark these days on a national political level due to these things. And I think we should trust the government and the authorities that they are taking this seriously. And we are developing measures to be able to handle situations that might arise.
Terje Meyer, thank you for coming to the Barents Observer. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, and good luck with your work.
Yeah, thank you.